Excuse me. Look, buddy. Oh. Oh, hi there. Hope you can hear me. So, oh, sorry, just bear with me. I've just triggered my TV to come on for some reason. Not to worry. Cool. Right, so hopefully you can see me. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got my phone here, so hopefully I can see any comments that come through. So yes, if you could let me know that you can see and hear me. Hello, Blissy. Now, obviously, we'll see how this goes, because the last time I had these pair out, Bliss decided that she really wanted to play about with Rebel. And it got quite confusing and hard to concentrate, but we'll leave them going around, and we'll see how we get on. So anyway, I hope everyone is well. And Bliss obviously wants her ball. So yeah, just let me know how you're getting on. And oh, hi Lucy. Oh, brilliant. That's great. At least we know that we can move forward. So if anyone has any specific questions, just pop them straight in the comments and we'll try and get to them. Obviously, there's probably going to be a little bit of a delay between what you're seeing and what comes from my phone. But we can just talk about any general things that you want to discuss. Any dog topic, any question, whatever you want to ask. I've got some things down that I'll run through just to have a chat, because it's like anything, you know, with the way lockdown is, I'm not getting out there and being able to train. So being able to sort of do stuff like this is really sort of helpful for me to keep my brain matter going and thinking about behaviour work as we go. There you go. So anybody's got any questions about anything dog related? Obviously, there's certain topics that if I have no knowledge of it, I will just try and find you someone who can. So specific things like nutrition, although I've done nutrition courses, I am certainly not a qualified nutritionist. I did a course recently to help with Bliss's digestion. She had a reaction to some of the painkilling drugs she was on, and it took a while. So I can give you anecdotal evidence on sort of my own dogs, but I couldn't give you any sort of basis. If you need any sort of nutrition advice, obviously, please ask, and I can try and find some people who will put you in the right place. But I think where we'll start, I've done a couple of posts today because very kindly some of my lovely friends, clients, followers on Facebook have sent me videos from, I think I had a couple that were probably American, and I've had some from different places in the UK, and they just post them to me and just ask me to have a look and see what I think. And it was interesting that some of them really kind of do upset me. It's really hard, and it's a weird industry that we're in, because it is it's self-regulated is the industry, but obviously Joe Blogs down the street can set themselves up as a dog trainer and go out and charge money for a service. And while they may have experience with dogs, and they may have done really, really well training their own dog, to go out and start charging money, a lot of them aren't insured. So they have no professional indemnity, they don't have insurance. There's a whole raft of problems that go with that. And not only then the bad advice and the bad practices that can look like they work. So i.e. someone goes out, the problem behaviour is happening, they do something, the behavior seems to stop. But where the difference between someone who is ethically trained and is up to speed with all the scientific information, they would be able to identify some of the emotions behind that and what's going on for the dog and being able to deal with that in a proper way, because a lot of things that we see actually suppress behaviors as opposed to cure the behavior. So i.e., you do something that's horrible to the dog, or that the dog feels like, oh, I've got to displace any activity, and so you take away any warning sign and the dog's just still feeling the same emotion but without the outward display. So then as it gets put under more and more pressure and it builds and it builds and it builds, because there's no outward display, you'll miss those signals, and then the dog will reach a point, and that could be 3 months after you've had the trainer, it could be 6 months after the trainer, it could be a year after you've had the trainer, and then a real serious problem comes up. And that's the problem. It's not about today or what the result is today or tomorrow. It's about the sort of forward thinking. So one of the posts that I did today was sort of centered around this dominance theory and the alpha pack. And if anyone's read that, you will see that David Mech, who was the guy who originally wrote the paper and then 10 years later did a further study on wolves in the wild, found that he was factually incorrect, and he's been trying to remove his book from the shelves ever since. So even the guy who wrote the paper that this theory was based upon is saying it's wrong. And I think if we're listening to him when he said it was right, we probably should be listening to him when he's saying it's wrong. You can't hold an expert up and say, this is the truth because I believe it and he said it, and now that he says it's not true, because we all know that science moves on, development moves on, we learn new things over time, and things change, things evolve. So we need to keep ourselves up to speed. So I'm probably going to cover off a couple of those topics. I'm just going to see what we've got here. So who have we got on? So we've got hi Alison. So hi Sylvia, if I've not said hello to you. And Georgia. So how can I stop my dog from jumping up on people? It's a nightmare when she's on a walk. Okay. So what can we do? Oh, and Jodie's joined us. Hi Jodie, hope you're well. So how can I stop my dog from jumping up on people? Okay, so the simple answer, Georgia, is reward the behavior that you want, but also think about the reward mechanism. So for me, what we've got is probably your dog. I don't know what breed or anything, but I'm presuming they just absolutely adore people. She really, really loves it. And gets enjoyment from it. So the more that she sort of goes straight up to someone and jumps up, that becomes the reward. It doesn't need to be a treat, praise, affection, just the act of doing that. And now that's all to do with dopamine release in the brain. And I'm going to try and not get too geeky tonight, but dopamine in the brain is the cause of a lot of, well, it's the cause of all sort of addiction in human, but what it is for a dog is the anticipation of event is often more desirable. So they get this built up and then it's boom, it's there. So the key for me would be, I want to use the person as the reward because the dog obviously enjoys it. Okay. So you're on a walk, she sees somebody and they come towards. The idea would be that you'd probably need to communicate with that person and just say, look, can you just stop? Just stop and wait, and you stay away and you kind of hold position. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wait for your dog to check back in with you. Now at this point, if the dog's too excited, you're probably too close. So we might need to create a little bit of distance. One of the terms that we use is critical distance, safe distance. Okay, so it's a distance where your dog can cope. If we push that too far, the dog cortisol and adrenaline levels build too much, the dog can't cope, and the brain is almost shut off. And again, simply because there's two systems at play, parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, and one just basically closes off the brain to you. So you're not going to have any access when you're in that situation, which is why you hear me say a lot of the time, train for the situation, not in it. But if you're on a park and you've got this opportunity, just stand back, just keep away. Once your dog checks back in with you, you can reward them and say, what a good girl. Did you say she? Yes, she. So you can say, good girl, well done. And then she can turn back around and look at the person. Now, if she remains calm, you can give her another call again, get her to check in with you again, and then you can move closer to the person. So now the act of calmness is getting you closer to the person that you're there with. And again, if it starts to build, just stop, get a rechecking back in with you. And what you're doing is you're just breaking down this journey from the minute she sees to the person, is that you're walking ever closer, and each time you're getting closer, she's just driving up that arousal system. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to calm that down and then just gradually sort of let it be calm, get closer, calm, get closer. So the reward is, if you're calm, I'm going to get closer. And then when you're a safe distance away, just wait around and just sort of, and once your dog's ignoring the other person and is focused on you or sniffing and mooching around, then let them say hello. And it's highly unlikely that they're going to go into that jumping up because they're much calmer. But if they do, what you just got to be careful, you just keep an eye on your dog and just go, right, if it looks like just even that little stroke is going to drive up the excitement again, just kind of very casually give your dog a call, walk away for a little bit. I mean, I'm talking seconds. I'm just talking a little movement away, maybe even a figure of 8 walk, and then wander back. So you're always going back. Because sometimes one of the problems that we have is that the dog desires something and we just move away. Well, that creates frustration and then desire, and the desire increases. I'm sure you can all appreciate that if you've got something that you really want and someone keeps putting it in front of you, excuse me, the desire. I'm just going to tilt that camera up a little bit more. Sorry, I think hopefully that might be a little bit better. So the desire increases and we continually sort of restrict the dog from getting any relief for the behavior that they want. So we need to give them an opportunity and an outlet to get that reward, but by choosing behaviors that we want. So hopefully, Georgia, that makes a bit of sense. I have this dialogue in my head when I'm saying it, saying, look, am I explaining this right? I can explain this well in my own head that I understand, but please let me know if that makes a bit of sense, just by sort of dropping me a comment, just say, yeah, I understand that. But you can practice that with, right, she does love people and can't contain her excitement. That's really helpful. But what you can do, I mean, I know we're in a COVID situation, but if you've got friends or you've got a bubble that you're able to see, practice that greeting. So let them see somebody with someone she knows and is comfortable with, and actually, you know, actually they could be worse, so this could be the worst person to try it with. But if you've got someone that she knows, again, the minute she sees them, just break it down, just take it nice and slow, and then inch closer to the person, step by step by step. That will naturally reset your dog. But the key thing is that you don't want your dog fixated and staring at the person. To move forward, they've got to disengage, refocus with you, and not immediately spin back. So it's not a case of look at the person, look at you to go, oh, give me a treat, and then I'll look back. It's got to be look at the person, disengage, focus. Now with me, I would build the treat and reward delivery over time. So I might give them a reward straight away for the first attempt, but then I'm going to build, you've got to stay looking at me for 2 seconds, for 5 seconds, for 10 seconds, for 1 second, and I'll vary it. It'll ping pong all over the place. So the dog never knows whether the treat's coming after 1 second or 10 seconds, and that maintains the behavior better. Variable reward ratio is crucial. Okay, it's the most resistant to extinction. So dogs looking at you, reward them, and then they can just stay. And if they do turn round, what you're looking for is not a turn round and going, it's just a turn around and then they can just mooch around and then you can move forward. It will possibly build up again, so she will get a little bit excited as she gets close, but you just keep starting, and you practice it as often as you can, preparing for the situation. And then when you're on a walk, just try and maintain that safe distance and keep going sort of through that and rewarding her for being at your side. So she actually learns that the value is totally with you. Okay, it's vitally important that the value is with you. Okay, so hopefully that's that one. Okay, what do we have? So we had that one. So then we had, okay, Any recall, tips and tricks. Tilly will not respond and it's becoming a game of chase. Okay, M. Okay. So obviously I'm going to try and say sign up for my rapid recall course because that goes through it all. But very simply, obviously I train recall with one of these, which is an Acme 2 10.5. That's because I have a spaniel and it seems to be the best ones for spaniels. I think Labradors are 211, different breeds, but I train a whistle recall. One, because while the dog's doing something different, this will penetrate further and it's more likely to sort of enter the brain. Your voice will get distorted by the wind and may not even reach the dog depending where they are. But also think about why they are playing chase. So if you think about, again, the reward mechanism, you let them off the lead, they get to run about and have lots of fun. We then think they're being belligerent and ignoring us, but they're just having fun. You know, how many times did we have kids, you know, your mum and dad said be home by 9 and you got home at 9:30 and 10 o'clock if you were me. But we still did it because obviously we're having fun, we're having enjoyment, and we lose that focus. Okay. So, but once the dog comes back to you, you might be a little bit frustrated with them. You might be a little bit annoyed, or you've been waiting. So now you clip the lead on and you leave the park. So the dog's cycle of reward has suddenly been changed to actually a cycle of punishment, which says if I actually come back to you, my fun's going to stop and you're going to take me off the park. So one of the key things to do with any kind of recall is, obviously I'd be suggesting, if you haven't got them to really sort of come back, is use things like a long line so you have that little bit of control, and practice them coming back to you, checking in on a regular basis, being rewarded for checking in and also being let to go again. So the reward for coming back is leaving again. Come back, go, come back, go. And then the dog doesn't have this thought in their head that the fun's going to stop. They get rewarded with going again, even if that means a bit of a pain that it was half an hour they took to come back to you in the first place. Whereas now, you've got them back and you're like, I want to leave. Well, actually, you know, sometimes let them go again. And so then you just change that reward cycle. But always with a whistle, I would condition the whistle first. So I'd be like, in the house, blow the whistle. With me, I blow 3 times because gun dogs generally is, for recall, it's 3 toots on the whistle for recall, 1 long blast for sort of halting position. But 3 toots would be what I would do. And I would just have the dogs in front of me like this. And I won't blow because they'll come running over, but 1, 2, 3. And reward. And I'd have 20 pieces of food in the morning, 20 pieces at night. 1, 2, 3, blow. And you could do that with a word. So you could go, I don't know, banana treat, and then banana can be your recall word. Use whatever word you want, but just have them in front of you and you just condition it. It's a bit like clicker training. So click treat, click treat, click treat. So the word means come to me and get food. Okay. And then over time, you're going to do it in the back garden. Then you're going to start using the long line and doing it when you're out and about. If you try and do it in the middle of all distractions, it's going to be really difficult and challenging. So what do you say? Okay. We can't even get her in from the garden. Where can I find out about the recall course? Okay. So let me just see if I can. They're all on my website. They are. I'll see if I can find you the link. But they are all on my website under online courses. And I think I might just be able to do this. So hopefully, there you go. There's a link to the Rapid Recall course, but and it just goes through step by step. If you do sign up for any of those courses, you get them access for life. They also have a dedicated Facebook page for support, so you can post videos. You can use WhatsApp as well if you want to send me videos, and we can review and keep going. So, but check it out, have a look on there. It goes through it in a step-by-step process for really how to condition. But what you really want to be doing is training for the situation, not in it. So you've got to really practice, get it rock solid in the house, and just really change that reward cycle to make sure that the fun's not stopping. So I do with Bliss often, and Rebel's not too bad. You know, he likes being here and chilled, but I would be sending them out, calling them back, sending them out, calling them back. So we just get this ping pong effect, and it just becomes the norm. And then I might even train what we call a harness grab or a collar grab, which sounds, I hate the name collar grab, but what all I do is I condition my hand touching the collar, hand touching the collar, hand sliding 2 fingers under the collar, and always rewarding, so that my dogs can run back to me and they know I'm going to reach for the collar, which means they don't run away from me, because they know that if my hands go under the collar, they're going to get paid. Okay, so everything is about making that really good for them and a positive association. You don't always have to use food, you can use a toy. So Bliss's recall to a toy is probably, I mean, she does like food. Rebel's an absolute food beast here. Bliss, toy probably works better. But then she likes jumping into my arms. So actually for her, one of her favourite rewards is being able to jump into my arms. So again, the reward cycle is really useful. So hopefully that is useful. But reward every time she checks in with you, okay? And as she's running towards you, say your word. So as she's on her way back, you know, and almost as she gets there to start with. So you're pairing that kind of whole process. Okay, right, let me just scroll through. Have I missed anyone? So Ellie is not an interactive dog. She keeps herself to herself whenever possible. If a dog zooms up to her, she will sit on someone's feet. Is that because she feels safe there? Yeah, I mean, generally, you know, it's a weird thing, because Bliss is probably very similar. I mean, when we bumped into each other, you probably saw that Bliss doesn't, she's, I know, so bad, isn't it? She had a cruise ship. We were trying to keep her calm, but she was sort of running about. But yeah, so the idea is there that, yeah, she's just coming to you. She feels safe. She feels comfortable. She's in a position, you know, when we met her, she gave no, and I hate the sort of term negative signals, but she gave no signals to sort of suggest that she was overly concerned. So there was no sort of cowing, no growling, no grumbling, and she met, you know, Rebel and Bliss quite happily. But Bliss is the same. Bliss will run out and she'll see a dog, as long as it's not a big fluffy dog, because she got chased by one in the park that was really friendly. It came up to her and they were about to say hello, and then Bliss took off and this dog chased after her. She was only a few weeks old, and so now when she sees a big fluffy dog, she's a little bit more wary, but she will just come back into middle. She'll sit, she'll wait. She might give a few little gruffs, so you know that, like that little spaniel cough, that arf, arf. And then the dog comes up, sniffs, and then once they've done that, then she'll go off and follow and sort of maybe interact with them a little bit more. But generally, Bliss is probably more of, I just want to go and have fun with a toy, because that's what I've created. I've created fun with a toy more than probably anything else. So I hope that helps Sylvie. But yeah, I saw nothing with Ellie when we bumped into each other that would concern me. You know, it's nice to actually, you don't want it to necessarily go running over and pestering. So that was really good. Okay, so Georgia, yeah. So I'd say, Georgia, let me know if that makes sense. Then we can go from there. So yeah, so I've just put the link on the bottom, so hopefully you can see that. Oh, hi, Nikki. Hope you are well. So let's see, how can I stop Finn eating grass like a cow? In the current wet weather, he runs into deep flooded areas on the field. He sticks his head under the water to pull out big muddy clump and eats it as he's running back. Okay. So is he eating the mud as well, or just the grass? Okay. I mean, the key thing is obviously once he's finding some enjoyment from it, and there used to be a lot of belief that dogs only ate grass because they had an upset stomach or because they wanted to make themselves sick. That's not necessarily true. With any vegetation with a dog, dogs aren't obligate carnivores. But they do struggle to digest vegetation. Excuse me. Hope you've all got a nice latte and something to drink, or maybe something a bit stronger. Oh. So they will often regurgitate it and then eat it again. And that's often because the acids in the stomach will have when it comes back out, we'll have broken it down a little bit, and then they can actually digest it, which is why dogs will often eat horse manure, cow dung, you know, and things like that, because it's partially digested vegetation, which they can digest. You know, I put fresh vegetables in Bliss's food, cook it, and I actually do mash it a bit and then mix it in with the food, because it's easier for her to digest. But if you want to kind of stop them doing it, then what you've kind of got to do is, again, first and foremost, there's no point trying to do this when you're out in the field, because, excuse my belly, we're not going to be able to have any control mechanism. So the key thing for me would be I'd practice in the home, I'd get some grass, I'd be going, right, okay, there's some grass. And what I'd be looking for is for almost Finn to be wandering up to it. And if he looks like he's going to get it, then I might just cover it over with my hand and do something that we call the mouse game. But I'd have something really nice in my other hand. So I'd cover it over. And once he moves away from the grass, then I'd reward him with something nice. And again, then I'd leave the grass on show. And if he wandered towards it and looked like he was going to eat it, I'd do that. And as he backs away, and then I can start adding my word of, excuse me, of leave it, of, you know, come away, whatever I want that to be. But the physical action of just covering it, so I'm not pushing him away, I'm not shouting no in his face, I'm not going to leave it or anything like that. This is just cover it with your hand, which is basically just, and him moving away, and then I'm rewarding him for moving away from it. Okay, and that's the key. So the dog does an action that I want, he gets rewarded for that, and then I pair the word. But there's no point me trying to get a word in before the dog's learned a behaviour. So I'm sure if Jodie's still on, hopefully if I've missed anything, Jodie, you can pop some comments in and you can help me out. So yeah, and then just set it up in different places. So I might just get like a pot with some grass in it, and just try it in the house for a bit, and then I might do it in the back garden, and then I might have him on the lead or a long line, and then go to where he has gone before, and then try and restrict him that little bit from getting there, get him to disengage, because once he's learnt the game of, okay, I've got to come away from it. But ultimately, you know, if he really finds it enjoyable, if he's grabbing the grass, you know, he shouldn't be, I mean, unless he's got an intolerance to grass, which is unusual, but I'm not necessarily going to be too concerned as long as he's not consuming or trying to consume loads and loads and loads and loads. But it obviously may well be coming intrinsically reinforcing for him to do, just getting some enjoyment from it. I know I have a collie that comes here sometimes and doesn't necessarily eat the grass, but will see tufts and will just rip them up, and they'll end up being thrown about, and then they'll just leave them. So it can just be something that the dog finds enjoyable. But again, if you can just set him up for success and go, right, let's leave it, let's move on to this. And if you leave it, you're going to get this. Leave it, you're going to get this. And then just move away, and then just go through that process and just gradually build. So hope that helps, Nikki. Again, just give me a shout if that doesn't. Oh. Right, where am I? Oops, sorry, I think I've just missed a couple of comments. He does eat the mud, okay. Okay, I might just have to go and look at my screen up on the other one, so just bear with me a second, because I've just had to come out of my video on this one. I think I've just lost a couple of comments. Okay, Nikki. So yeah. So I would just, again, with the mud, again, just sort of teach him. So it's almost like, no, leave it. And sometimes he'll drop it, but he'll often run back and eat it. So the key thing then is absolutely, it's almost like your reaction is part of the fun. So it becomes a bit of a game. So I might let him know that I've got that really high value treat, but we've got to walk quite a way away from the item before he gets that. So again, it's all about building that distance and duration of reward delivery. So I work on something that we call a bridge. So once the dogs come to me, I'll go, okay, yeah, great, well done, that's really good. But I'm not going to deliver the ultimate primary reinforcer of the food for maybe 20 seconds until I'm further up, okay, to that distance where I know that he's not necessarily going to go and return to it, because by then he's lost his focus and won't go through. So yeah, you just got to build that bridge. And when we talk about a bridge, anything you do from the moment of kind of initial reinforcer, which could be a good boy, good girl, to delivery of the treat, becomes part of that bridge. So if you were to say, good girl, do a pirouette and then reward the dog, if the dog saw you pirouette in your living room, they would expect a treat, because that's something that's on the bridge of the treat delivery. So hopefully that didn't waffle too much. So just bear with me 1 second while I just go and check, because I'm convinced I saw another comment that I might have missed. I'm sure you can still hear me, so apologies if I've gone. So Sylvia's on the wine, I can see that. Okay. So I've got that. So I'm just going to try and scribble these down a second so I don't miss them again when I come back. Okay, so hi Michaela. So each of our dogs panic when the other is taken outside without them. Okay, so we think it's because they feel they're missing out and they don't want to interact with us in the house as they've gone too far. They also won't take treats as distraction. Any tips? Okay, so Michaela, so dogs, sort of separation. Okay, cool. Did that. So Emma, how can I bathe the dogs outside without turning into a game and chasing around the garden? So Emma, bathing dogs outside. Okay. Hi Ruth. So hello, you've met Sandy, so you know she can be nervous. Red Cocker Spaniel. Okay. Still working on meeting other bigger dogs. Had 3 calm ones in front of us before I could get Sandy on her lead. Oops, sorry, where are we? She went up to them, but when first one approached, she stood still with her tail just between her legs. Carried on calling and telling her she was a good girl. After a few further seconds, she slowly followed me and then got more bouncy once she was in front of us again. Is this the best thing to do? I didn't want to put her on a lead as I thought that would give her the wrong signal. Okay, so Sandy. Okay, so just sort of shrank a little, shall we call that? Shrank. Tail just between her legs. Well, again, the tail position, okay, the tail can go down, whether it's tightly tucked, but we'll come on to that. So I'll go through that. Okay, okay, thank you. That's really helpful. Tilly a couple of times, she's stubborn. Okay, and so what have we got? So, gosh, apologies that I jumped off. And so 8-month-old working Cocker Spaniel is currently going through a nervous barking, all noises related, post arriving, so noise desensitization. Okay, cool. Sylvia Wine. Vanessa replied to Vanessa. We're currently using a quiet after 2 barks and praise the quiet. She's not quiet and continues barking. Tough when I'm working from home. Okay, yeah. Okay. He does eat the mud. We've done that one. I could leave a Sunday dinner on the floor in the lounge and he won't touch that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I need to extend the distance from the clump before the road. Okay, I should work on that. Thank you. Right, I think we're up to speed. Now I've got these questions, so hopefully my... much better to look at Rebel than me anyway, you know. Okay, so we've now got everything up to speed. Okay, so now I can see if I can read my own writing. So the dogs... that kind of dislike each other going out of the house. So we would deal with this pretty much the same way we would deal with sort of any sort of separation related issue. And Jodie, who I did see that was on here, I mean, Jodie's fantastic. She's a separation anxiety absolute professional. She's done the Julie Naismith course, which is exceptional. And so I'm sure if she's still on, then she might pop in and just sort of give some things here. But the key thing to work on here is think about timings, because we often try and get to the end result too quickly. So for me, what I'll be doing, I'll be building independence of those dogs away from each other as well as time together. So I might just start taking one dog out of the room and leaving one dog in the room. So actually just in the living room for just 1 second, you know, walk out, walk back in and reward the dog that's staying in. Okay. And then repeat and swap and repeat and swap. One of the reasons why they're not taking food, and I mentioned this earlier, you heard me say parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system. To eat, a dog needs the parasympathetic nervous system to be engaged. Okay, if that's not engaged, they won't eat, which is why trainers often use food in training. It's so we can see. It's not just because we like shoving food down a dog's throat. It is so we can see where the dog is on that sort of scale. So we feed, they're taking food, we know we can move forward with training. They're not taking food, we need to rein back. Okay, so that's your barometer of how you train. So we would sort of let the dog do a couple of seconds away. We'd walk away. We might even keep them in the same room and just walk away without even going out of sight to start with. And we build that gradually. And then eventually you're going to walk and get out of sight for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 second. So again, it ping pongs all over the place. And I think one of the best analogies I saw was that, you know, Olympic athletes don't always beat their personal best. You know, it varies. Some races they'll beat their personal best and some races they'll be way off it. You know, so behavior is fluid. It's never always going to get bigger and bigger. So we have to allow for that variation. Then eventually you'll be able to walk out with one dog, but you'll only walk out for 1 second and come back in. But you must not go, you're always trying to stay in what we call a sub-threshold position. So we're not trying to get the dog to have a negative reaction. We're just going to go, right, I walk away, I come back and reward you. Okay. Often if we leave the food on the floor and then go away, we're almost forcing the dog with the food. And you're then pairing, dare I say it, because when we talk about value transfer, which is counter condition and desensitization, which uses pairing a previously scary thing with something positive, it actually works both ways. So if you don't do counter condition and desensitization correctly, you can pair something negative with something that was previously positive. So you can make the food horrible because you're pairing that food with something that is horrible. And sometimes that's why dogs can go off particular kibble. And it's because we either get frustrated with them for not eating it and we're like, oh, come on, eat your dinner. And yet our body language changes just because we're being a little bit, you know, angry or frustrated. And there's a recent study that says that dogs will read our body language from the sort of neck down 80% of the time and only read our head sort of 20%. So when we get frustrated with a dog and we do that, then that can be enough to put the dog off from eating that particular kibble, because they'll link the smell, the taste to, you know, a not particularly nice behavior, if that makes sense. So getting the dogs used, do it slowly is the simple answer. You know, take one out into the back garden, then come back in, mix it up, vary it, build it slowly. And then you're not sort of forcing them to go through. And then the more that they're taking food, and once you've got past a certain amount of time, it does get easier. And it isn't a quick fix, because, you know, your dog's getting stressed about something, and there's lots of predictors for that. And I know that often we look at predictors in a weird way, and sometimes we focus on them a little bit too much, but it is important that at some point we work on removing predictors. So putting your shoes on, putting your coat on, picking the leaves up, all those things are predictors. So I do still to this day, because it's an ingrained habit, is pick leads and harnesses up and just do nothing, vary everything, mess about, do lots of different things. So my dogs never get used to something being a predictor, so I can just leave and do stuff. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So Emma said about bathing. Oh, Alison, which one was yours? Because I did go back and try because I might have got one. So let me just check, Alison, because I'm not sure I did write it down. Like I say, this was my fault because I jumped out of my screen at one point. Where am I? Right. So Alison, where are you? Okay, Michaela, thank you. Right. Okay. Right, Alison, I can't see. Can you just remind me of what your question was? Apologies, I can't. I've just kind of tried to have a look and just see what's what. So, and I can't see it on my screen. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just pop that back in for me, and then I'll have a double check. So for some reason I can't see that one. So if I jump onto bathing dogs outside, so what are you using? Do you have a hose pipe? Do you have a mud daddy? You know, what is it that you do? Okay. So I do wash Bliss outside. I mean, she's a spaniel, so, you know, Rebel comes back, even when it's really muddy, he's pretty clean. Bliss, even if it's dry, she comes back covered, but she's a spaniel. So I have a mud daddy for her. So what I tend to do is when I come back, I will come and fill it up, and I'll warm the water up so I'm not washing her with sort of freezing cold water, and then go through that. But the first thing I do is I don't even wash them the first time. That I get them used to whatever I want them to bathe. I kind of recreate the situation and say, right, you know, I've got a brush here, I've got the hose pipe, this is what it is, stand still, and then just slowly move, and then build duration for them standing still, and then maybe turn it on a little bit, turn it off, reward, turn it on, turn it off, and really kind of just build duration rather than trying to wash the whole dog in one go. So again, it's that whole principle of training for the situation, not in it. So I will work on washing the dog when they don't need washing. So like now, I could get my mud daddy, and I could just, so the trouble is if I stand up and move now, Bliss may follow me, but I have a mud daddy. So, oops. So best thing I ever had for the sort of the camper van. So obviously, you know, this is the mud daddy, and I would just be going, good boy, you know, and just, I know I've woke you up, haven't I? Good boy. And then just pop it down. Good boy. What's this? Yeah, good boy. And then obviously I'd add the water, but at the moment I'd just be brushing and just letting him know that this is what I'm going to be doing. And then I would be feeding. I haven't got any treats on me because the minute I do that, Bliss is going to come hurtling over. And she's looking at me on the sofa going, what are you doing? Good boy. I know. But you can see how Rebel's like, okay, you know, you're doing that. What am I watching? So all I'm looking for here is, again, if you look at dog body language, you know, his ears aren't pinned back, they're just to the side. But just keep an eye out for things like little lip licks. So if he flicks his tongue out, I might be pushing him a little bit too much because he's like, no, I want to be asleep, and he may not sort of want this, but he's got almond eyes. He's just thinking, what are you doing? Good lad. And then we'll just pop that up. Good boy. Yeah, good lad. Okay, so, okay, just make sure. Okay. He doesn't like a hose, a warm bucket of water and a cloth with shampoo. Okay. I have to keep putting biscuits on the floor to keep him still whilst I wash him. So yeah, so one of the tips is to sort of go through that, but don't necessarily, so have the cloth, have the bucket, and then just do it without the water, and just, what you do is stroke him once with the cloth, reward, stroke him once, reward, stroke him twice, reward, and then build. And then once you've got the cloth, you stroke him once with the water. Now you can Obviously, if you think about groomers, you know, they would always have a lead fastened and tethered, so he can't just sort of run off and go. But you've got to be really careful about, does that make him stressed? Does that make him worse? You know, because restraint often does drive that. So for me, I would just be building this without having to wash him. So just like I did then with Rebel, you know, just have him in this position and get the cloth that's associated with washing and just start stroking, and then get it wet and just start wiping him down with sort of wet and build it slowly. And actually then what you do is you build the treat delivery, or the reward delivery is extended. So again, you vary it. And this is probably one of the important things, is that we do vary the reward ratio. So like I say, you do 3 strokes reward, 10 strokes reward, 3 strokes reward, 8 strokes reward, 15 strokes reward. So the dog learns that they maybe have to be stroked more and more to get the reward, but you always vary it. And I might stroke him once and reward every so often, because variable reward ratio is kind of crucial. Okay, so I hope that helps, Emma. Gosh, you know what? I've wrote that down, and my writing is absolutely shocking. So I'm just going to come back and check. I think I've got like doctor's writing. Shocking, really, isn't it? It's ridiculous. How can I write something down and within a few seconds completely forget what I'm doing? Okay, so Sandy, right, so this kind of tail tucked. So I think, as I said, it's not necessarily absolute sort of fear, but if your dog's not running away, not sort of going into thing, it's just making sure that she can feel safe. If if she's sort of froze and the other dogs are sort of pestering, you've kind of got to go and help her out a little bit, communicate with her, sort of let her know that everything's okay. If she's off lead, generally they will behave, dare I say it, better, because they have more choice. They can choose to get away, they can choose to do this. But you can see that at that moment, when the tail's slightly down, she's kind of like, I'm not sure. So she's giving off a signal to say, crouching down, and it's what we call kind of displacement activity. Now, there are some dogs that could read that and may be worried about that particular type of behavior. But obviously, again, you would expect owners of those particular dogs to be responsible and know that, right, my dog sees a dog doing that, then they shouldn't be roaming free, shouldn't be, if they can't greet all types of dogs, then there is a protocol for making sure that your dog's on a lead and sort of looked after, careful and well. So the key thing is, if she's with you and the dogs are coming, I'd be giving constant feedback. Like, oh, good girl, dog's 50 feet away, here, have a treat. Dog's 30 feet away, have 2 treats. Dog's 20 feet away, have 4 treats. Oh, dog's come right close, now you can have a party. Okay, so it's kind of what we call differential reward ratio. So the closer the stimuli gets, the more your dog gets. But again, remember that the minute that they stop taking food, we've gone too far. Obviously, if a dog's off lead and something takes them by surprise, well, you can't train that at that moment. That's just something that has happened, and the dog has got to learn to do it. So I do talk to my clients about stress inoculation. So stress is a part of life. With dogs, they have a limbic system that's slightly different. So their amygdala is way bigger than ours, so they feel emotion way more intensely, but their cerebral or frontal cortex, where rationale takes place, is smaller. So they can't really deal with it in that respect. So what we need to do is to kind of help the dog in a different way. So we talk about preparing them for the situation. So I use safe distance. And it's like every time she sees a dog, let her know that's a good thing. See a dog, good thing. See a dog, good thing. Reward the calmness. And then as she goes through, she should be able to cope with that a little bit more. But preparing her for stress, so random noises, random stimulation, anything like that, but at a low level. And this is the key. A lot of people push their dogs too far too soon. I did a post about something today where the dog was flooded. It's one of the few videos where I've looked at, and I try and steer clear of most of it, but some clients sent me some recently, and it did physically make me cry, because you're like, the people were believing that they were doing so much good for the dog because the dog was coping with this. But you look at the dog body language, there isn't anybody who isn't ethically trained to a proper level that would not looked at that dog and gone, that dog is terrified and cannot cope. It was the people were one way, the dog was pointing the other, trying to get away, and we were flooding that dog, and that's too far. That will cause cortisol increases, that will cause internal organ damage. There's so much going on in that just breaks my heart. But yet the people thought they were doing the right thing in trying to help. So their intentions come from a good place, but would do more damage than good. So flooding you have to be careful of. But if the dog's off lead, she's going to choose behaviours that work. So if crouching her tail down a little bit, if it's not absolutely tucked under and she's quivering, the tail going down, is a bit of a displacement activity, and kind of says, look, I'm making myself smaller. I'm no threat, which should diffuse any dog coming up to it, which should make them sort of more gentle in their approach. So everything is all about this little communication bubble. So again, you can only get there and then just reassure her. And then when she comes to you, say, oh, what a good girl, and just make sure that everything to do with that is sort of pleasant. Because if she's still going over there and wanting to investigate, she's making that choice herself. She's not running away. So we're not necessarily dealing with out and out fear in that scenario. So I hope that, does that make sense? Okay. Have I missed anything? I know I've got a couple of questions still, and I've got another one come through. So Alison, thank you. I've got your question there now, so I'll come on to that in a second. I think the only other one I just want to cover off was, okay, Vanessa. So 8.5 month old working Cocker Spaniel currently going through a nervous barking. Okay, so at 8.5 months, there are things that we call fear periods in dogs, tend to kick in sort of any time after about six months of age, go through to anything up to 2 years sometimes with how these work. And things that your dog was previously okay with, they can now become nervous and fearful of. So they're going from that natural inquisitive stage to a more sort of worried point. So how do we go through that? And obviously all noise related, either at house or outside, post arriving, noise in back garden, made by neighbour, it's getting super frustrating. Any tips? Okay. So with noise desensitization, the thing that I tend to do most is I don't focus on the actual noise problem itself. So let's say the letterbox going, okay, probably the worst example, but I would probably go and use practice training with things like my kitchen cupboard doors, and I'd be closing my kitchen cupboard doors and rewarding my dog. And some people will say, yes, but my dog doesn't react to cupboard doors closing. That's the point. You can slam a cupboard door, your dog doesn't react, and you can reward them. So you're training them that when something novel happens, like the slamming of a door, if they do nothing, they get rewarded. Okay. Now I think, who was it? Did someone mention that the trained 2 barks and a quiet? So we are using a quiet after 2 barks and praise the quiet. However, she's not quiet. Right. So if she barks twice and you say quiet and she's still barking, what does quiet mean? Quiet means bark. So what you have to do realistically with the quiet word. So I trained mine with shush. So speak and shush. So I might have a squeaky toy that would elicit a dog to bark. So I squeak, and the dog would bark, and then the dog would go quiet. Okay, and then I'd reward. And then I'd start adding my words. So before I press the squeaker, I'd go speak, and then squeak, if you can follow me. So it would be speak, squeak, and the dog would bark. And then I'd wait for the dog to stop barking and I'd go shush. But I would do that when the dog had stopped barking. So I'm pairing the word with the action the dog has done. So if the dog's still barking and you say quiet, the dog will associate quiet with barking. So you've actually trained quiet means bark. So quiet means bark more. Okay, so you must wait for the dog to stop barking. And when the dog stops barking, you go shush or quiet and reward. And then over time, you keep repeating that and repeating that. And eventually you'll be able to test it by saying quiet before she's stopped. And it should get you to stop. But that's how you do it. You've got to start with it by pairing it with the action. It's how I train Rebel to kind of stick his tongue out when I can say the word tongue. And his tongue will come out. And I did that by holding a piece of chicken. And then every so often, Rebel would lick his lips. So the tongue would come out. And as soon as the tongue came out, I went, tongue, treat. Hold the chicken, tongue out, tongue, treat. And then eventually I was able to say the word tongue and it just naturally caused the tongue to flick out. It's the same principle when we do toilet training with a puppy and we wait for the dog to go toilet outside and we go pee pee. Or for me, it's busy, busy. Don't know why, just what I've got. So go outside, go busy, busy, dog will wee. But I did that when she was weeing. So she paired her action with the word that I chose. Okay. So again, dog that's barking, just be mindful that when they start barking, yep, you can use the word speak, but wait for them to stop barking before you add the shush and then condense it down. Once you've got the shush really, really sort of working and you can actually get in. And what I would do is I'd say, right, my dog barks for 15 seconds. So I might go create the thing that makes it speak, bark, 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 get to 14 seconds and then say shush. And if the dog stops, then reward. And then I can go to 13 seconds, 12 seconds. And so I'm condensing it down that way. But it means that the word's got a pairing. Okay. But in terms of noise desensitization, I would look at all the general noises. So I tend to work on, so let's say a dog barking affected Rebel. I would be saying, right, what noises don't bother him? So cows mooing, sheep baaing, horses neighing, and any other farm, chickens clucking. Okay. And I would play those sounds through my phone. I'd go on YouTube, play those sounds, and I'd just be rewarding him for doing nothing. So I'd go play the sound, reward, play the sound, reward. And then I'd work through the volume spectrum and I'd go higher, 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 higher. So all I'm teaching him is that when novelty happens, novel noises, you're going to get paid if you're quiet. Once that's happened, then I'll start working on dog noises. And I might go, right, it's a Jack Russell yap that really affects him. So I'm going to work on a German Shepherd bark. I'm going to work on a husky howl. I'm going to work on a Chihuahua yap. And then I'm going to go on to the Jack Russell as the final thing. And generally what you find by the time you get there now, he's just not reacting to it because he's learnt that, oh, when there's a novel noise, I do nothing. But if you message me, I've got some nice little workbooks for noise desensitization that sort of talk you through it and go through that. And I think on my YouTube channel, I've got some how to stop a dog from barking and things like that. So if it's in the window, but yeah, if you send me over a message on sort of my messenger on here, I can get you some stuff sent over. Okay. So hopefully that's helped. Does that make sense, by the way? So I'll just check these again. Right, I've got 3 more questions coming there. So yeah, so Vanessa, so when she has a barking session in the garden and she won't stop, how do I manage that right there and then? Okay. So again, this is another one of those things that becomes self-rewarding. So if you think about it, what is it that she's barking at? So it could be the neighbour, it could be a cat, it could be a bird. And generally what will happen is eventually the neighbour might go inside, the bird might fly away, or the cat might disappear. So that rewards her for the barking because she's done a job. I told you to go away, you've disappeared. So she's now got a reward, an internal reward, an environmental reward for that behaviour, which you have no control over. So you're not even part of the reward cycle, but she's getting a reward. Okay. So for me, I'd be going, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop her on a long line for the short term so that I've got some control, because otherwise you're going to have to go outside and you play this game of chase and she's going to run around and she's barking. So what I would do is the minute that barking starts, I'm going to be very gently making sure that I can reel her in, okay? And I'm just going to bring her in, okay? For probably a very short, brief period, particularly, and when she stopped barking. So I bring her in, let her stop barking, and let her back out again, okay? And if she started barking again, I'd wheel her in, okay? So again, very gently, no stress, no fuss, no grabbing, no pulling, no yanking, but just really calmly, just, right, you're coming in. It's almost like, we're not having that behavior, so we bring her in. But what we do is we wait no more than 5-10 seconds and we're letting her back out again. Now, sometimes people will go, yes, but that's, I've done a post about reinforcement schedules, and that would, if it worked, would be classed as negative punishment, because we're removing the outdoors from her and we're hoping that the barking reduces. Now, it can take a bit of time, and it's like with anything with dogs, it's repetition. We know that it takes 400 repetitions to create a neural pathway in the dog's brain, but we're being very kind, we're being very respectful. There's no yanking, there's no jerking, there's no shouting. It's just very calmly, you do X, you lose it. We do it all the time with, I mean, what's the biggest punishment you can give humans these days? Probably taking the mobile phone off them. So if you were doing something totally wrong, you take your mobile phone off you, that biggest punishment going, it would soon correct the behavior that you didn't want. So with the dog, it's not about doing anything horrible. And I would say, I'd give my dog short bursts, and I would still be out with them and rewarding quiet. And then once I've got that kind of mastered, then I'd go out again with them. And this time I'd be there, and when the neighbour walked out, I'd be ready to reward very quickly, so that the neighbour means reward, neighbour means reward. You see a bird, you get paid, and then you can stay outside. But ultimately, it's like, no, you want to be outside, but you can only be outside if you're calm and gentle. If you're going to go into this mad frenzy, then no, we're going in. But this is a training session. That's what you have to remember, that you can't get a thing to happen into a dog's brain without repetition. Without the reward cycle, without the repetition, it won't just go away. Because once it's a formed neural pathway, you have to create, we use the analogy like train lines. So you've got this train line here that is the barking. We've got to create a new train line that runs alongside it that is incompatible with barking. So, for example, barking is its own reward, gets the thing to go away, so she's happy with that. But if we can get her to be calm and she gets her favourite thing, whether that's favourite toy, favourite food, or affection, or whatever it is that she values, then she'll choose this one over that. And then this one eventually will fall into something called extinction, okay? The cessation of a behaviour. The problem is that with extinction often comes something called extinction burst, which is where they try harder for what they previously got rewarded. And that's where the problem comes in, when we put a lot of problem behaviours on variable reward ratio. So you heard me say about variable reward ratio being the most powerful and the most resistant to extinction. We often put the bad behaviours on variable and the good behaviours on constant, okay? It's the wrong way round. I'd be much happier to go, right, my dog's misbehaving, I'm going to reward them constantly for the bad behaviour, and then I'm going to stop rewarding after so long, because that will actually probably create more extinction to happen. Because if you think about variable, it teaches a dog to persevere. So if your dog's barking in the garden and you tell your dog off once after 5 minutes, and then you think, oh God, I give up. And then they go out again and they're barking again, and this time it's 7 minutes, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to tell the dog off. And then you do it after 1 minute, one day, and you think, right, I'm going to get on this. But then the very next day, you're like, oh God, I've got something to do, and you go out after 10 minutes. So you're ping-ponging the bad behaviour onto variable reward ratio. You make it impossible to make it extinct because the dog's just carrying on. Okay. Does that make sense, please? Hopefully. Let's have a quick look. Perfect. We'll buy a long lead and start straight away. Yeah. Let me know how you get on. I mean, if you need to, film the dog, send it over to me. Let me have a look, just in case there's anything else going on. But absolutely happy to do that. So, where did I get to? So I know we got to Alison. Right, Alison. Yes, I have a problem with my dog humping my arm. She grips with her front paws very tightly and will sometimes nip me at the same time. Okay. So we often, humping is not a behaviour that is just solely down to male dogs. It's predominantly going to be males, but females do it too. Okay. We often sort of don't really know too much necessarily about it. I suppose you could argue, and forgive me, but humans have been self-pleasuring for years, so it stands to reason that there is a possibility that dogs get some enjoyment out of it as well. There is also a possibility of when pups are born, it is possible for female dogs to have what they call the male brain due to testosterone surges and things like that. So it doesn't mean they're a male, it just means the brain structure is slightly different. But if they just get an enjoyment out of it, it can become a learned behaviour. I think the key thing for me is try and spot the moments before it starts. Okay. So have a look and sort of try and make some mental notes. Is it after she's eaten? Is it 6 o'clock at night? Is it 6:30? Or is it just random times? Is it when she's over aroused? Is it, are there any sort of key triggers that you can spot before? Does she have a look in her eye just before she does it? And the key thing then is about having strategies to move her on to. But again, for me, it would be a case of if my dog started to do that to me, then they would lose me. It's like I would get up and leave the room. I get it once they've got hold of your arm, depending on the dog. I don't know if you said, did you say what breed it was? Just saying, because if it's something like a Great Dane or a Rottweiler, it's probably not so easy to get off you. So, okay. But yeah, so just really try and spot. So redirect. Once they're into a frenzy, it's really hard because remember I said that the brain gets shut off and they're just going to be busy doing. So spot the subtle triggers beforehand. Make some mental notes so you know how to sort of get on with it. And then as she's coming in, just the hard part is because if you block with one arm, she might go to grab, but just kind of block and then redirect her away. Okay, she's a staffy. Okay, so yeah, small and powerful. So yeah, and they grip on. Oh yeah, rather tight. But yeah, so I'd be spotting that signal and it'd be like, no, I'd leave the room. I'd get up and I'd just go now, and I'd wait. Again, very subtle, small times. This isn't about when people talk about removal for a dog. And if you do look at this, people say, oh yeah, I left my dog for 20 minutes. It's way too long. We're talking 5-10 seconds max. Because actually, when I come back in, I do want the dog sometimes to get it wrong again and again. Because if the dog gets it wrong and I leave again and come back in and they get it wrong and leave again, and then I come back in and they don't do it and I stay in the room, you can see that there's a teaching lesson there. There is a valid way for the dog to understand that there is a consequence for one thing. One consequence gets me a treat and one consequence gets me to lose the thing that I love more than anything, my owner. But also being able to reward and direct. So there's several elements to this is where if you can redirect, give her something more appropriate to get on. So, long chew bone or something that she really values. But if she values the humping that much, then, we need to sort of lose that and then think about, well, okay, can we exercise her before that moment happens if it is happening at a specific time? So focus your way of managing her exercise regime. Scent work is a brilliant thing to do with dogs. If you think your dog's got too much built up energy, but you've not necessarily got time to be walking miles or doing this or doing that. Bliss is my English Springer. She's curled up fast asleep on the sofa. She's done, I think, 4 searches today. One of them was a 2-minute search. One of them was a 5-minute search. I then set up a multi-search, which include passive signaling and active. So she's probably done 20 minutes of searching and she is absolutely shattered today. So scent work is a way that you can really tire your dog out mentally, which removes some of that pressure and stress of that arousal build-up and gives them an outlet of what is their superpower. So I'd be looking at that whole exercise regime. So hopefully that kind of helps. So Alison, hope that makes a bit of sense. Let me know if it does. Elise Moffat. Okay. Sorry if I said that wrong. My eyes are terrible. But okay. So my female giant schnauzer reacts to some dogs, mainly other females. I'm clicker training her and it's working to a certain degree. Okay. So I think the key here is in terms of clicker training her, probably just need to understand what you mean by I'm clicker training her and it's working to a point. Are you using the clicker to distract her away from the dog? So she sees a dog, you click, and then she comes to you for the treat, because that's almost like, because we don't want, the clicker isn't to be the distraction noise. The clicker is to mark the behavior that you want. So for me, the way that would work is that she would look at a dog, she would look at me, I would click and reward. So what I'm clicking and rewarding is the action of seeing another dog but turning away from it and looking at me, clicking and rewarding. Because if I click when she's looking at the reward and I'm trying to use that as a distraction, I'm kind of clicking and saying, yeah, I like that you're looking at that dog. You know, so I'd probably just need to understand that dynamic, but that would be what it would be in terms of look away. So I tend to use something called DMT, which is distraction mark treat. Also think about where she is on her arousal system. So if she's had too much stimulus, so if she's seen 3 dogs, the 4th one might be tough. So always think about where she's on that level, because once cortisol and adrenaline has reached this point called threshold, it will take a dog on average 72 hours to calm down from that. So if she has a reaction on Monday, she can still be suffering the effects of that on Wednesday and Thursday. And so you think, well, you walk past that dog on Monday, not a problem, but on Thursday you barked at it. And that can be the effect of this adrenaline and cortisol buildup. I think I say quite famously, you know, I don't really walk Bliss that often. I do lots of different exercise with her, but when we do a walk, I know that at the moment she's on lighter duties because of obviously this cruise ship. So I just need to be mindful into kind of what we do. But even before that, you know, I would rather have gone in my camper van and gone to the Peak District and gone for 6 hours in the wilds and then not do that again for another 3 weeks, but then just do lots of other training with her. But yeah, so yeah, every time she sees a dog, it would be distraction is the dog. She chooses nothing, you mark and reward. And that's where clicker training works. So if you're doing it that way with clicker training, not a problem. Okay, so yeah, okay, yeah. So every time she sees a dog, reward. So for me, it's like a dog means treat, dog means treat. It's almost like the dog is a treat dispenser. But also as I'm walking towards the dog, again, I use that differential reward ratio. Say, oh, look, there's a dog, 1 treat. We're a bit closer, 2 treats, a bit closer, 3 treats, a bit closer, 4 treats. We're side by side, here's a party. But for me, I would only ever be using my dog's daily food allowance. Okay, so I'd only be using my dog's daily food, so I'm not overfeeding them. When I'm rewarding these two, they only get their normal dog food. They don't really get treats, they just get their ordinary dog food. I've got some, they're on a mixture, they have some raw, they have some fresh veg, they have some kibble, you know, we vary, we try and give them a real mix of stuff, you know, variety and things like that. So Bliss it loves her broccoli. The house doesn't always smell that good because of that, so just be warned. But you know, you can mix that up. So absolutely, just use their daily food, but dog means treat. If you find that there is a point that your dog is struggling to cope with, come back before that. But try and steer clear of some of the methods that we use. Is you would hold a treat and the dog would see the treat and you'd have to walk past the dog before they got the treat. The problem with that is you're kind of forcing the dog to confront its fear and not associating anything positive along the way until the dog's gone. And by then, because of the length of time it takes to pass by the dog, you're not teaching them anything about the prior behavior. It's only that moment. So the importance of see the dog, get something, see the dog closer, get something, see the dog, get something, really feeds into the dog's cycle of, yeah, do you know what? you worry me a little bit, but this is good. We're pairing that good association. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Where did I get to? I think I've so I have a problem with dog humping. So eyeleash, if I have, apologies if I'm getting that totally wrong, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Just let me know. Jessica, have an 8-year-old Staffy Cross. He's always been quite confident and loves other dogs with regular playmates, walking buddies. Always off lead in our usual walking places. Usually meet the same. Oh gosh, right. I've just opened up that. So always off lead. Usually meets the same dogs every day. Loves his routine and has very good recall. But I always put him on his lead if a dog is approaching on their lead. Before Christmas, he approached another dog. Usual greeting behaviours. The other dog was off lead too, and owner not concerned. But out of nowhere, the other dog went for my dog. I didn't see it coming, and we were both shaken by it. Ever since then, Benson is so nervous when the other dogs are approaching. I've tried really hard not to transfer my anxious feeling to him, which I think was probably the problem in the week after the event, as I was shaken by it. But we're now over a month since it happened, and he is still doing it. So is he just, so in terms of his nervous behaviour, is it just that he's giving nervous behaviour? He's not doing anything. It's not doing any sort of problem behaviours as such. So let me see. So when an unfamiliar dog approaches, he whines, tail and ears right up, and then he will run full pelt past the other dog and then wait for me to catch up. Any ideas? I'm trying to remain calm and reassure constantly. I don't want to make him worse by doing the wrong thing. I'd just like him not to be worried anymore. Still is fine if it's dogs we'll see all the time, only with new dogs. Okay, cool, fine. Probably should have read before I answered that sort of question. So, right. So again, you know, let's sort of break this down that, you know, he's had a traumatic event. Nothing, hopefully he was fine, nothing bad happened, but, you know, this happens with dogs, you know. They will make a lot of noise, they will growl, they'll use their teeth, and dogs do bite, you know. We don't want them to, but, you know, if they feel threatened, their mouth, you know, is our hands. And they will tell dogs off in certain ways. So we have to look at it from that point of view and sort of just go, right, it was traumatic. It's going to take him a little bit of time. Just think about yourself. If you, don't want to say anything bad, but like say as humans, if we get scared by something, if, you know, if we suffer a trauma, you know, it takes us a while to get over it. Okay. So the key for me is using those doggy friends that he's got to try and mimic how you want him to greet unfamiliar dogs. So again, I might break it down. I might sort of go, right, come here, you know, let's do this, break it down into those steps. Again, reward him constantly for checking in, you know, maybe if you're near a park bench, sort of sit down with your dog and have him with you. So, you know, and then just constantly sort of reassure as he gets closer. But again, you've got to build this over time. So you've got to start from a safe distance and then gradually close that down. So at the moment, try and figure out what his safe distance is. You know, where does he start to whine? So at that point, when you say there, you know, and I can understand why you were shaken by it. It's not very nice, but it is, when I describe this, it's not an abnormal behaviour. You know, sometimes it happens. Dogs sniff each other for whatever reason and they just take a dislike. It's a shame. But I think find his safe distance and maintain him there for a bit. And then once he's comfortable and he's like, yeah, I've seen that dog coming, and he just starts to show very subtle signs, that's when your reinforcement goes in. And then what I might do is, before they get too close, is walk away, but still be doing the practice with his doggy friends. So always going, these are your friends we're going to walk towards, and just absolutely reward him for the right behaviour with his friends, and then gradually work towards closer with unfamiliar. Okay, so don't be in a rush to get him to say hello to unfamiliar again. Let's just take it nice and slow and just go, look, this is okay, you know. Because dare I say it, when we've had I remember when, you know, I was involved in a car accident, you know, and I think it took me years before I went down that road again. That was just me, you know. I was like, yep, I managed to get in the car, but I couldn't go down that road. So we deal with things in a sort of different way. So hopefully, Jessica, that gives you a little bit of understanding. Practice with the dogs he knows, find a safe distance, work at that safe distance, and then let's say it's 50 feet, then go to 40 feet once he's comfortable, and then to 30 feet. And if you take it nice and slow and reward him all those steps of the way, it won't be too long before he's like, okay, yeah, I'm over this, you know, and I've worked through it. But just people will often say, well, you know, you do this, you're going to condition this the wrong behavior. I think when you're talking about fear, what you have to remember is fear is not a behavior. Okay, fear is an emotion. You can't condition an emotion. You can condition the behavior that goes along with the emotion, but you can't really condition the emotion. So we've got to be very careful with these two things, that the behavior of running past and going too far on and waiting for you, you know, that may be the behavior which we could reinforce, but the feeling, you'll never reinforce that because you can't reinforce an emotion. Okay, so just be very clear that, but if we can work on the emotion, the behavior may disappear, because the behavior is only a way for him to cope with the perceived stress of a situation. That's his way of coping. We all have coping strategies to deal with various bits and pieces. That's his at the moment, and we just need to, again, condition him. So I think you're on the right track, just taking it nice and steady, not putting him under too much pressure. You are trying to reinsure him. You won't be making him worse. You know, I think, you know, if you try, it's hard if you can just try and keep yourself calm and just go, look, you know, you've got this, you're protecting him, you've got his back. It shouldn't take too long. I mean, I say take too long. Everything for me is, I always like to go as slow as possible with any dog training. The slower you go, the better. The more you can practice, the better. Just stay within his fresh distance. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. Right. Yep. Okay. Absolutely, yes. She just didn't like him. No one was to blame and he wasn't hurt. It was all noise. Okay, cool. Right. So, yeah, have a go at that if you can. Where am I up to now? I think I'm getting through. So, oh, hi, Hannibal. Hope you're well. Gosh, it's been a while. So, Daisy, oh, gosh, has a thing for the letterbox and just constantly charges at it, even if the postman hasn't been. How can I stop her? Okay, just remove your letterbox. No, I'm joking. So again, the key thing is there anything specific? Because I presume it may be because something has come through the letterbox. So does the flap blow in the wind? Does it move? Does it rattle? You know, is that part of the reason that this is happening? But what I would try and do is, I might set up the session where I'm going to save my junk mail and I'm going to prepare for this session. So I might go, right, you've probably heard I do a thing called the Hop It Up game, which is a boundary game where the dogs have a raised bed. They go onto that bed. And then what I might do is I might just touch the letterbox and then have my dog sort of just sat on the bed, and I would reward them for staying on the bed. Touch the letterbox, reward them for staying. Touch, reward, touch, reward, touch, reward. Flick it, reward, and then I get somebody outside with some junk mail, posting that through and rewarding them for staying put. Okay, so basically what I'm going to say is that something comes through that letterbox, or the letterbox makes a noise, you do nothing, you get paid. Obviously, one thing with that situation, I would always look to management as well, because the problem here is the letterbox is a permanent fixture in your home. You are not going to be in training mode 24/7, which means the dog has an opportunity to do this behavior when you're not ready. So whether that's by putting a temporary barrier across, if you've got a hallway, to block the dog from getting to that letterbox, and then do the training session separately. So yes, you have to put yourself through a little bit of sort of heartache in terms of how you live for a while, but prevention when you can't train, and then train the session and train what you want you to do around the letterbox. So again, it's that whole thing of the letterbox means, and even maybe post some treats through the letterbox, so the treats are dropping out of the letterbox. So it's like, oh wow, this letterbox, is this. And again, if she did start doing it, I might even go, oh, I'm going to have her on a house lead, so that if she is going for that, I can remove her away from it again for a couple of seconds, and then bring her back, and then remove her if she goes for it again, and bring her back, and then reward her when she doesn't go for it. So just changing that emotional condition response of what the letterbox means. But it's more likely being built from a plethora of letters coming through and the letterbox moving. It's quite a common thing. It's the same principle if your dog lunges at the TV when there's a dog on the TV. It's that same principle of working through it in a slow way. So yeah, so it clatters when the post comes through, and then she just grabs and chews it. So is that grabs and chews the letters, or grabs and chews the actual letterbox flap? But again, it would be, again, working on the reality. So save all your junk mail, and then, send one of the kids outside, and, when you're ready, is get them posting, do it slow, post one through, reward her for watching it drop on the floor. Because generally, once they've watched it and they haven't charged at that point, they're probably not going to charge, because it's all the build-up, it's all the prediction of one thing on top of another. So if we slow it down and do it bit by bit, she has now grabbed the flap off. Yeah, so it is just post it through, but reward her for staying. So you might have her on a lead and have you in the hallway and having someone posting letters through, and then rewarding her for not going for it. But I'd make sure that if I can't be around, or I know I'm going to be on a Zoom call, I'm going to be doing this, then either have her not in the room where the letterbox is, or put a barrier across there so she can't get to it. That way she doesn't get her own internal reward, because for her that would be letterbox coming through, letter coming through, attack the letter for coming into the house, drops on the floor, it's now dead, she's done her job, yes, she's been rewarded. So it's, think about that reward cycle. It's like, no, actually, we'll pay you if you leave the letter alone. And you can do that by just being in your front room, having the letters like this, and then just going like that, and then reward the dogs. And again, you can just drop it. I mean, you can see Rebel, it's like, good boy, and just reward. Okay, so train them for what you do want, and then sort of have the prevention there as well, if that makes sense. Okay, well, I think I've hopefully answered everything. If I have missed anybody, please either send me a direct message and let me through. But hopefully I've covered off those things. Just have a quick check that I haven't missed any more. Cool, brilliant. So all I'm going to say now is, obviously, if anyone has got anything else, please pop a question in and I will try and answer it. I know we're being on a little bit, but again, I'm just going to very quickly just go through this, because I did put a post out about this dominance theory, and hang on, I've just got another question. Okay. All right, Annabelle, not a problem, have a go. All right, so Manda. Okay, let's have a look what we got. We have a two year plus old staff mix who is a rescue from a Bulgarian fight ring. Okay, wow. He is a loving and attentive until another dog comes into view. What would you recommend to attempt some kind of desensitization? Right, okay. I mean, this is a tough one. It's a great question, and because we have got an abundance of rescue dogs coming in from these situations. I mean, as I'm sure you can imagine, you've got a dog here that's been used and probably treated pretty awfully to ensure that it can fight. So we're talking, you are potentially always talking about major trauma. And I think there has to be a realistic point when we look at that and go, there may not be an ability to turn this dog fully around in terms of its reaction to another dog. Because if you think about it, his however long his life has been, he's had so much time spent with dogs doing pretty horrendous things to him. It's hard. Okay, so I think for the immediacy, obviously, if he's happy, and he's fine with you. When we talk about, is it a requirement to take a dog out? There always used to be this rhetoric of, you must take your dog out for a walk every day. Rebel snoring. For me, you don't need to walk your dog every day, but my big caveat is you have to exercise your dog every day. So there are many, many ways to exercise a dog without forcing them into something that is going to make them fearful. Yes, desensitization is absolutely the way that you would have to do that. So I might start with, I don't know, the sound of a dog. Okay, so I might work on noise desensitization, but I might work on noise of a cat. I might work on noise of a farm animal, like I've said before. And then I might work on a stuffed toy giraffe. Okay. Or if someone's got a statue that's shaped like a dog outside, I might work on that. Then if I've got a friend who has got a dog, then what I might do is get a microfiber cloth, get that to the neighbour's house, get them to rub that all over their dog, obviously private parts, and also getting as much of the scent onto this microfiber cloth. And then I'm going to bring that microfiber cloth into my house, pop it on the floor, and every time my dog goes and sniffs that, I'm going to be feeding every time they sniff that. And that's where we're getting the dog, without the physical sight of another dog, we're getting them used to a scent of a dog. Okay. And we can reward them and pair them with that scent. And then it's a case of, yeah, you're going to have to work very slowly and steadily from a long distance away, see a dog, and what have you. And I suppose the main aim for me in cases like that would be, my criteria is not to get this dog to say hello to another dog, because, you know, let's be right. If all of a sudden they're quite happy and they're sniffing and things are going well, if the other dog suddenly barks or yaps or jumps or freaks, it will just basically bring all that potential emotion back to the front, and then we're in a whole world of hurt. So I think, you know, I love the fact that, you know, you've rescued this dog and he's obviously, you've got him in a loving home, but I think you've got to look at it from a point of view of, we can give him a good life. What can we do? We can work on it. And I would never say never not, but you've got to be mindful that we want to protect other dogs, and we also want to protect your dog, because this dog's had trauma. You know, this dog's seen probably the worst of humankind in terms of what we allow to happen. And we want to make the rest of his life as good as possible. And if that meant for me never taking him out for a walk, apart from, you know, maybe driving to somewhere, private field. There's plenty of private fields around now where you can go and hire the field for yourself and go and let them run out. Things like that are fantastic because it gives us an opportunity. We can work on desensitization in a nice, steady manner. The most famous one that I worked on was a Romanian rescue, which had been treated like a football by humans and hated waste trucks and things like that. He's like, wouldn't even go out into the back garden to do a poo. And I worked with them for a year, and we got the dog happily in the back garden. We built a sort of mini agility course with just random stuff from was in the garden. He was running around that most days. We did some training around the estate, and we managed to get him to be able to walk around the block. And we got him into, believe it or not, we actually got him into a daycare for one day a week, and he was able to go in the car and go out to, say, you know, the Peak District or somewhere like that when we were able to. But after a year, you know, I just said to him, right, look, you know, he was a bit older than yours, but we'd reached a point where I was like, look, we don't want to push this dog anymore. He can walk around the block, he can do his business, he can go in the back garden. He loves where he is, he loves his life now. Let him live out the rest of his life, you know, with some enjoyment and happiness. He doesn't need to be constantly exposed and pushing him. You know, I think when we take dogs like this, we do have to just think, yeah, I've got to just be a little bit more mindful of where we can. But you can certainly work on it. But I think have that in your head that, you know, that's something in the future. My main aim for you would always be, number one target would be eventually getting him to be able to just walk down the street on the other side of the road and not be bothered by a dog. That would probably be my, you know, utopian goal. Anything after that would be an absolute bonus, but that would be what I would work towards. But yeah, definitely desensitization, but from a real long distance, and really start to build, because depending how deep rooted that trauma is, you know, I'd always sort of say, yeah, we might even need to talk to a veterinarian. And if it was so deep trauma, you know, we might need to look at, if we wanted to move any further, we might have to look at medication. But for me, I can tire a dog out in 5 minutes without having to do massive walks. I can do physical exercise with them on things like fit pause equipment, different ramps, different surfaces. You know, I can build that in without too much of a problem. So there are ways to exercise a dog without the walk and to mentally stimulate. And again, you know, God scent work, I think, would be something that would be really powerful for that dog. 41% of a dog's brain given over to sense of smell gives you a big window. But using a towel on another dog, and then if you've got a couple of friends and you can get some different dog scents and you can start going, look, sniff that towel, and you're just going to throw food on it, all of a sudden the smell of a dog changes the emotional condition response. So hopefully that helps. So Emma, yeah, we rehome Cooper in December. He is a 9-month-old lab. How can I introduce him to the cat? Currently the cat stays upstairs and Cooper stays downstairs. Cat doesn't seem bothered by the dog and sits on the stairs whilst the dog jumps up and growls and barks at the stair gate when he sees it. Okay. Will it be possible? Yeah, of course. Just like I've just said in that case. I mean, for me, get a cloth, rub it over the cat, you know, put the cloth on the floor, start getting that scent. One of the problems with cats and dogs is opposing body language signals. So what's an aggressive posture in a cat is a submissive posture in a dog. So they misread signals. It's not that they can't get on. Most dogs will learn to get on with cats in their own household, and then all other cats' bets are off. Okay, but just pair that. Obviously, we're going to keep your cat safe and not stress your cat out as well. So that would be if you've got a cat basket, one of the carry baskets, obviously, put the cat inside there. But I would use the scent thing first to get the dog calmer around the scent. And then I might go and buy a stuffed toy cat and then just have that on the floor and teach my dog to sort of steer away from it. And then I'd rub that stuffed cat on your own cat. And then I might tie a piece of string over the cat so I can actually start pulling the string with the stuffed cat along the floor to mimic movement and reward my dog for being calm. And then once I've done that, I would then have the cat in the cat basket, so safely locked away, have the dog on a lead and start walking him towards the cat basket. The minute it gets too rambunctious, walk him away, wait for him to be calm, say, good boy, bring him closer. So again, he can get closer to the cat basket, but the minute he behaves in a way that we don't appreciate, we just move off, okay? And then bring him back. And the idea is we take him away, bring him back until he can just be around it and just be nice and calm. And then the key from that would be then having the cat in the room, but with the dog on a lead. And again, just creating that movement. But by going through those stages of, you know, the smell, the sight, the stuffed toy, the scent paired with the stuffed toy, the real cat in the cat basket, keeping everything safe, that is the way to go through it. And you just do it in a steady way. So it's like all of a sudden, oh, right, yeah, cat means I get paid, cat means I get paid. And I just go through that process. So hopefully, Emma, that makes a little bit of sense. So there you go. Jessica says, mine started like that, but now they're all best of friends. The cat gives Benson a good clean and they sleep together. It's definitely possible. Yeah, you're absolutely. Once they break that barrier of communication, oh yeah, it really can happen. It can be hard work. It doesn't always work. I mean, to be honest, you know, most dogs, we look at it and go, yeah, it's the dogs that are the problem with the cats, but the cats are amazing. You know, I mean, they'll just swipe a dog, you know, like nothing. And you often see, I've seen a dog run and chase after a cat and then the cat just stopped dead. The dog got to the cat and you think, oh God, this is not going to end well. And the dog just stopped and stared at the cat and then the cat just gives it like, you know, 10 punches in about 3 seconds. You know what I mean? And it's like, and the dog runs off squealing. It can be really bizarre. I'm not suggesting that we do that. You've got to go slow, got to go at the dog's pace. Okay. Cool. So I think we've answered most questions. If anything else comes through, I shall keep an eye on that. But again, I just wanted to just finish off with this kind of dominance theory basis and just give you a very, very quick rundown and just to say, look, if you saw the post, go and have a look at it. David Meck was the guy who wrote the dominance theory in wolves, and he found that the captivity created different behaviors, because a wolf pack would normally be mum, dad and siblings, and the top wolf was often only got to the top because of mating, and because they then had litter, so it was mum, dad, siblings. So the actual competition alpha didn't really exist. Okay. Oh, what did I say? Hi Kirsty. Hope that was all useful. Like I say, please let me know and I'll try and do some more of these as well. I want to do as many as possible, get information out there. But yeah, so the dominance theory was debunked, years ago by the guy who wrote the paper, and is even trying to get his publishers still to stop publishing the book. But obviously, if the publisher owns the rights and they're making money from it, it still gets put out. But just recently, I got sent these videos, and there was one where a dog had slipped a lead and the trainer jumped on the dog to stop it getting towards another dog, and the owner was told that their dog was being dominant. And you're like, no, the dog had a full bucket, the arousal system sort of crept up, we pushed the dog too far, you could see the dog was agitated well before that. An experienced trainer would never have pushed the dog that far, so the dog would never have reacted like that. But if the dog's feeling fear because of an approaching dog and the dog is on the lead, the dog will feel like it's trapped and will choose fight or flight. And if it can't choose flight, then it's going to choose fight. So in this scenario, we create a situation where we build the stress up of the dog. We then force it to confront its fear. It doesn't feel like it can cope. It's got to do something to get rid of the stress, and it chooses a behavior. And then we label it as dominance, which is absolutely bunkum. There was one where the dog was barking for attention, and you're like, no, a dog barking for attention is not dominance. I mean, it's the worst dominance in the world, isn't it? I used the analogy on my post where I said, if a child is screaming in a supermarket because you've walked past the Kinder Egg aisle, is that child being dominant? No, it's throwing a tantrum. And dogs have a learning capability of a 2.5-year-old child, okay, in human context. So we know that it's got nothing to do with that. What had happened is we'd got a learned behavior, okay? So you have the ball. The first time the dog barks at you, you go, oh, that's really cute, and you throw the ball. And the dog goes, oh, that worked. So you get the ball, the dog barks at you again, you throw it. Over time, the dog then, you don't throw it straight away. So the dog barks twice, the dog barks 3 times, the dog barks 4 times, and then you throw it because you give in. Remember I said about variable reward ratio? All of a sudden, we've put this problem behavior of bark at me to throw the ball on variable, because we go, you know what, today I'm not going to throw the ball for you if you bark at me. The dog goes bark, 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 and then you give in and you throw it. And then if you don't throw it, the dog then has the frustration because we've not done any training with the dog. So the dog just gets more and more frustrated as the barking continues. That's not dominance. That's us teaching the dog to do a behavior that then we can label as dominance. I think it's very easy for us to use dominance as a label to get us out of the fact that we probably did train our dog to do that. And I know I can hold my hand up and say, oh, in my time with my dogs, I've unconditionally trained them, or not deliberately trained them. I've just done it without knowing that my behavior is rewarding them for something that I don't want them to do. So the one that really upset me was the dog that wouldn't leave the house for food. I mean, many of you have seen a video I did with Travis where I actually did an online consult with them, and the dog wouldn't leave the house. I went through the step-by-step thing, and the day later they posted a video of Travis walking, probably looked like it was West Park actually, walking quite happily. And that was within a day. Didn't put him under any stress. But the difference here was that the dog was taken away, and there was a trail of treats for the dog, which we're using food, fine, okay? But you're forcing this dog to get the food to confront its fear of moving away from the house. Its tail was tucked so far under its body, its ears were pinned back. And actually at one point, the dog turned to face, obviously, I presume, where the home was, and everyone else was further down the road. So they weren't even facing each other. What was sad is that, I think the people that were doing this came from a really good place, and that they wanted to help the dog, and they were really proud at how far they got away from the home. But this dog was terrified, and I'm like, I'm breaking my heart going, my God, this dog is absolutely really scared. And what you're doing there is you're then pairing food with something really traumatic. So you could actually damage the food relationship for the dog by that behavior. So when I did it with Travis, the case was I just said to him, right, go onto your drive, go to a point before where he stops walking. You walk past that point and then just kind of wait for him to take one tiny little step towards you, and then reward him. And then do that again, and then take the pressure off, go in, and then repeat. Within a day, the dog was walking, because we rewarded the behavior we wanted, which was these tiny steps towards us, rather than luring. And that's the key difference. Luring is fine in certain scenarios, but in stress, you're forcing the dog to confront. So the way that we did it was like, no, the dog's got to take a step towards you and get rewarded. Then you are clearly rewarding the move forward, not forcing the dog to move forward to get the reward. The actual move forward triggers the delivery. Okay, that's the subtle difference, and it's a powerful difference. But you're always working below threshold. But I say it's a shame, because I'm sure these people meant to do a really good job and were really pleased. But as I said to you, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, destroys dogs' internal organs. So you keep pushing a dog that level of stress, and the science behind it, and I think it was Blackwell et al. 2012 did a study on cortisol increase, found that one stress level could result in a 200% increase in cortisol. And even an hour after the event, it had not dropped below 200%. That's how damaging it is. It's bad enough in humans. It's even worse in dogs. One of the other videos I got sent was a dog on a sofa that growled when somebody went to sit down. So resource guarding, we would normally term that as. But again, was told that it was dominance. Well, no, it's more likely that, got a situation here. So Rebel, I know, sorry, buddy, on the sofa, Bliss is on the other sofa. Now, I've trained these dogs so that I can jump on them, climb over them while they're on the sofa, so they don't mind. If I call them off, they'll come off. So we've done all that work beforehand. But the way that starts is, as a pup, you get the dog on the sofa, you have your cuddles, dog falls asleep, in this little well here, and it's like, oh, it's so cute. We reward and we stroke the dog. So we teach the dog that this is a really valuable place to be. Dog gets bigger, we suddenly don't want it on the sofa, so we start restricting its access. The dog then, when we're not there, jumps on the sofa, and then when we come in and we want to sit down on the sofa, we move the dog off. We're now taking away that valuable place that we've trained already from the dog. Now the dog fears losing this valuable space because it has value in it. Okay, it's like food, it's valuable. So now it growls. That's not dominance, that's just the dog fearing losing it. And again, we condition that behavior by what we did. Pulling on a lead, classic sort of dominance thing. Yeah, dog's pulling you on a lead, is trying to be dominant over you. I mean, I always have this weird thing with dominance. If dogs are truly trying to be dominant, they are the worst at it. Because, I mean, look, they've lived with us for 40,000 years, and yet they're still dogs. Bliss does not tell me what colour to paint my walls. Maybe she should, because, white. She doesn't tell me what sofa to buy. She doesn't tell me what car to buy. I do on occasions let her choose where we walk. So I'll walk, and if she turns left, I'll go left. If she turns right, I'll go right. I do let them do that. But, she never tells me, or forces me to do something. But if I create a walk that, let's say, I mean, there's a nature reserve near us, and she loves going there. And every time I walk past it, she veers off because she wants to go in there. Is that because she's being dominant, or is it because I've taken her there, and when we've gone through it, we've played ball, we've played frisbee, I've done scent work, we've had lots of fun in there. So she's enjoyed it. So her pulling off that way is certainly not her trying to be dominant over me. It's her saying, I really like this place, really want to go there, So again, it's that reward cycle, that pulling on the lead, if we get to a destination, because the dog's pulled us to the destination becomes the reward for pulling us there. So actually we've conditioned the pull, and we've trained the pull, and then we put it on variable reward ratio, because we get annoyed and frustrated and we try and deal with it, but then the dog still pulls, so we give in, and then we put it onto variable. So again, we kind of build through these things. And I think it's really important that when we look at things, is a dog truly trying to be dominant over us? Because if a dog is trying to be dominant, surely they're going to be dominant 100% of the time. It doesn't just come and go with whims. It can't just be they're trying to be dominant over us because of the sofa, but they're not dominant over us because of the dining room chair. So if it's just the sofa, not the dining room chair, so we've got to really get ourselves out of this labelling system and working on some of the issues. I mean, we've had some great questions tonight, and it's really taxed my brain a little bit as well, which I'm really thankful for. But, we often, it sometimes is easier for us to probably label it as dominance because it's then not our responsibility. It's the dog doing this, but the dog didn't choose to come and live with us. We picked them, we brought them into our homes, we took them away from their litter mates, and we give them a good life and we do all that, but they don't suddenly decide everything we do. But really just think about behaviour. And I've did a live a few weeks ago where I spoke about breaking down a behaviour construct into its little component parts about everything to do with that behaviour, and then look at it and think about where the reward cycles come in. So me just stroking a dog like this, is a reward cycle. Me just saying good girl to Bliss, is a reward cycle. Negative attention is also a reward cycle. Okay. And you'll often hear terms, and again, I'm going to come to a close because I've kind of run on quite a bit really, but some great questions. I talk about the reinforcement schedule. You hear people talk all the time, and it's not just people who do things training that upsets me, and even though it comes from a good place, we've got to hold ourselves to better standards in terms of how we train dogs and how we keep moving forward. The last 5 years have seen the most scientific studies done in dog behaviour, which have never really been done before. All the problem stuff used to be to do with dog bites or dogs biting children, but now there are studies that are being commissioned for oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. So we're learning so much more. So we need to keep ourselves on top of this so that we can actually know how dogs are really thinking. And there's so much we don't know about them. So much, okay, because they can't tell us. And we're the dog guardians. So we've got to hold ourselves to better standards when we do this. But even on the other side of the stuff that I don't like, the aversive trainers, trainers that throw things at dogs when they're doing something wrong because it's going to interrupt it and stop it. And I'm like, well, why can't you just go stop it? Because if you're going to throw something, if you take that psychological process and go, if I just teach them to come away from me and reward them, then I can do that without throwing the thing at them. But also to do with the positive element, there are people who will go, I'm a positive reinforcement trainer. And again, I did this post where you can't call yourself a positive reinforcement trainer because that can only be defined after the training has taken place and then you've measured the result after. Okay. You can call yourself a reward-based trainer. You can call yourself, I suppose, kind of force-free. I kind of use the words kind, ethical, fun and games-based reward trainer. Okay. But the positive reinforcement can only be defined. I use the analogy famously where, I go, dog bites me on the arm and I punch it on the nose, but the dog bites me more. That's positive reinforcement, because positive doesn't mean good. Negative doesn't mean bad. Positive means add something. Okay. Negative means take something away. Reinforcement, again, doesn't mean good. Reinforcement means a behavior has increased. So a behavior is deemed to have been reinforced if it increases. A behavior is deemed to have been punished if it diminishes. So if I have a dog bite me and I punch it on the nose, I've added the punch, the dog bites me more, the behavior increased. Ergo, positive reinforcement. But no one would say that what I did there, and I haven't done that, by the way, I don't go around punching dogs on the nose, but no one would say that's good, but it would still be termed under the psychological term of positive reinforcement. So it can get really, really confusing. So I'm not going to waffle on and go on to that, because I think you've heard enough of me talking on. So yeah, I think as you can see, I mean, I kind of I don't know why I've got these on actually, but I'm a member of an approved instructor with the Dog Training College, and very shortly got to go through my audit. So I've got to make sure that all my CPD is up to date. I've got to have completed so many hours, and so many of that has got to be accredited to make sure that I can have my status. They also will check my website, they'll check my Facebook posts, they'll check my social media to see that everything I'm doing is in line with their ethics and ethos. I'm a member of not you can see that, but a Pet Dog Ambassador Program, Pet Professional Guild, IABC, the International Association of Animal Behaviour Consultants. All these places hold sort of surveys, reviews, and vetted. And it's important that anybody who's going to work with a trainer, I'm lucky around this area that I know some amazing trainers. I mean, I've just mentioned today that we've had, just locally. I mean, there's Jodie Graham, who is an absolutely amazing trainer and superb at separation anxiety. There's Katie from Katie's Canine Academy. So Jodie runs Jodie Graham's puppy, I won't get this wrong, but behaviour and puppy expert. I can never get her title right, but Jodie is amazing. So Katie runs Katie's Canine Academy. Again, another fantastic trainer. We've got Jem from Red Robin Training. Again, brilliant trainers. Got I know Natalie over at Positive Terriers and what have you. So again, amazing trainers that we've got. And I don't want to, I'll probably miss people. So I know even further afield. So we've got a lady called Katrina. If you ever want to know about agility, Katrina Bailey, she does some work with agility, really fantastic. Further afield, I mean, I mentioned mainly female there, so I'm going to mention Colin Spence, who's further down towards London, but again, and know so many amazing trainers locally as well. We have some really good. I mean, Emma is someone I want to do more work with, because she's a gun dog trainer. I've got a gun dog, and I keep wanting to do more, but then obviously we've had lots of things happen. But we've got some fantastic trainers locally that all do the right stuff. And I'm more than happy to share and speak about those really good quality trainers, because if I'm not available, I want to make sure that I can get help to people that need it with the right quality trainers, and we should support also a lot of our local trainers. So we're lucky in this area. We've got some fantastic trainers, and I'm proud to work with most of them. I think I've worked with quite a lot now, and there's probably some that I haven't mentioned. So if I haven't mentioned any of you, I'm sure you'll send me a message saying, why don't you mention me? But we have some of the very best trainers around locally. And hopefully, they would say the same about me, because I'm really good. But anyway, I'm going to call it a day there. So I don't think I've got any more questions. Just let me have just a quick double check. But hopefully you found that interesting and useful, and we're able to glean some tips from that. And yeah, I hope you have a really nice evening after listening to me for a couple of hours, and I will set up another one. If you've got any topics that you want me to cover, again, you can just pop another post on that. Send me a message directly. I will pop them down so I make sure I cover them. If I have missed anybody's question off, send it to me direct, and I will get an answer to you, whether that's arrange a call. But again, thank you so much for listening to me. Good luck with your dogs. We're here if you need us. While we may not be able to do in-person consults because of COVID regulations, we can certainly arrange calls. We can arrange Zoom consults. We've got online training. There's so much we can do. And even if I can't help you, I can virtually guarantee you that I know somebody that can, and be the right type of person for you as well. So thanks for listening. Have a great evening, and I'll see you soon.